Hello again, guys. This is Frieza700. We are back with some Warhammer 40k lore. This time, y'all have requested it, but who the fuck are the Black Templar? Oh boy. So, if you saw the real talk from yesterday, just know that this is going to be a little long. This might take me a while to really fully explain in detail who the fuck these guys are, so that way you guys have an idea of who the fuck they really are. So, Black Templars, who are they? Well, first things first, you cannot talk about the Black Templars unless you mention that they are a non-Codex compliant Space Marine chapter. Now, that is strange, because the Imperial Fist chapter are probably the most non-Codex compliant, but they still comply within a certain degree. They're still 1,000 men strong, they still have companies, all that fun stuff. But this chapter takes it to the extreme. They do not have any Codex Astartes rules in their chapter at all. Absolutely none. So, does that get them in trouble? Yes. But it's going to be explained later on. So, they have, instead of companies, they have fighting companies. Now, a fighting company is usually what makes up the fighting force of a crusade. Now, you may think, well, what's that? We're going to get into that in the organization part, which is after this. So, fighting companies, since they're much like regular companies, the only difference is that since they're not Codex compliant, they have no restrictions. So they don't have restriction on number of men they use. So it could be 1,000 dudes or it could be 100 dudes like a normal Codex compliant thing, but usually it's not. Usually it's way more than 100. They also don't have restrictions on how much Terminator armor they use. They don't have restriction on how much dreadnoughts they have. They don't have restriction on how many vehicles they use. Because again, they aren't Codex compliant. Now, of course, the chapter itself does not make up 1,000 Astartes. Instead, their numbers are predicted to be around the 6,000 to 5,000 range. This is a lot of Marines. Now you may think, well shit, if I dropped this whole chapter on any threat, they'd probably wipe them out. And you'd be absolutely correct. The only issue is that they're a very highly scattered chapter. Because there's usually no less than 3 crusades going on at a given time. So that means that they're always divided. They're always scattered around the galaxy, fishing out these crusades, and they've always been doing this since 10,000 years ago when they were first formed. They've always been on the move. They've always been this way. Now, not using the Codex Astartes at all definitely has earned some distrust between them and other Space Marine chapters, but more importantly, the Inquisition has kind of had their eyes on them. So the Inquisition, they demand to know numbers and specifics about Space Marines. This is a balance of power kind of thing. So if a Space Marine chapter doesn't report to them how many dudes they have, what their home world is, what their gene seed is doing so far, the Inquisition is going to be very, very interested in your life. And last thing you want is someone who's a mixture of the feds and the CIA to be all of a sudden curious about your daily life. Especially with today's Pornhub sites. Trust me, you really don't want these guys looking at you, because they will kill you. Now, despite the distrust the Inquisition has with some of the Black Templars because they refuse to really answer their questions, and they are kind of power-hungry motherfuckers, so they really love to know these details, they overlook it majority of the time, because these guys actually do their work for them. We're going to get into that. Don't worry about it. I'm going to explain what I mean by that. Now, something else that makes them a deviant from the Codex Astartes is that the Codex Astartes demands that you usually have a scout company. This chapter does not have that. Instead, they take their neophytes and they put them in Crusader squads, which is typical squad of Templars. So that means that they actually take you while you're training and throw your ass into the front lines. This is while you're receiving training. This is while you're receiving implants. And you are expected to fight alongside your fully formed battle brothers who actually are wearing power armor. They already completed their training. They already have all the implants. Yeah, you're expected to fight side by side with them. So with that being said, how is this chapter organized? Well, let's start with the smallest unit that makes up the chapter, which is a Crusader squad, because I just talked about it. Crusader squads are usually your typical Space Marine squad, but they do not have a limit on how many men could be in that squad, so it could be like 1 to 20, which is a lot. But they are usually led by a member chosen from the squad members. There is no ranks that officially elect someone for a position. This is interesting. So again, this is a lot of stuff that this chapter does that no other chapter does at all. So they don't have like sergeants, they don't have captains. Instead, it's all mutual agreement. So if you're in a Crusader squad, you may think, well, who's going to lead the Crusader squad? Who's going to act like the sergeant? Well, you are not given this rank. Instead, you are selected and mutually agreed upon by your fellow squad members. So that means is that if you are a chapter master of the Space Marine chapter known as the Black Templars, you are not their chapter master because you were next in line. No, there was no hierarchy that you ascended through. Instead, it was just all the Marines mutually agreed that you were fit to take the mantle of leadership. So you were not essentially ascending the ranks, you were just so renowned and so honored and so long-standing with this chapter that all the Marines feel very comfortable with you personally, but they also respect you enough to know, okay, you definitely could lead us to victory. Here you go. Here's your mantle. That is actually really interesting. Now, the Crusader squad, as I mentioned, typically has neophytes in it. So that means that the recruits are fighting alongside with you. That does not mean that they are Marine malevolence, where they will hold their scouts by the back of the neck and use them as a shield. No, they actually fight with them as if they were full-on battle brothers. So that means if they die, they will get pissed, and they will push on and make sure whoever killed their neophyte is going to fucking suffer. Now, what is the usual equipment makeup of a Crusader squad? Usually they bring swords. A lot of swords. You're going to see a lot of chain swords, a lot of power swords, a lot of black swords. Even their neophytes are going to have swords. Now, you may think, well, that's a little odd. But you have to remember, this isn't a codex-compliant chapter, so they don't need to bring bolters. In fact, this is some that's a little side note, a little trivia for you guys. But this chapter has very little to no Devastator companies. So that means very, very rarely will you ever see a heavy bolter squad in this chapter. You will never see that. So that's interesting. Now, a lot of Crusader squads, if you put them together, will form a fighting company. Now, a fighting company, you may think, well, who leads that? That would be known as the Castellan. The Castellan is in charge of the fighting company, which typically means he's in charge of the crusade that the fighting company is currently deployed on. That can change. And as I said, the Castellan, just like the chapter master, just like the leader of the squad, these guys are all selected out of mutual agreement from all the battle brothers. Now you may think, well, if he's in charge of a crusade, and some crusades are usually fought with multiple fighting companies, do they all go under one leadership? Or do both fighting companies fight the same crusade under two different leaderships? Well, that depends on the crusade it's on. So, if it is a specific type of crusade where, per se, is mutually beneficial for both fighting companies to fight under one person's leadership, then both companies will mutually agree which Castellan should lead the overall crusade. That doesn't mean that the other Castellan loses his position as Castellan. No, he's still a Castellan, but it's just that he's now receiving orders from the other Castellan who is elected to kind of lead this whole crusade. There's another situation in which case a crusade might not be run by the Castellan, where the Castellan may not actually be leading his own fighting company. This would be when it is a particularly important crusade. So let's say the War for Armageddon happens again. Well, the chapter master, also known as the High Marshal, the High Marshal may say, you know what? I'm going to deploy multiple fighting companies here, and I'm going to directly lead this crusade. That means all the Castellans now have to report to him, give him their info on where their troops are, everything, and he's going to tell them what to do. He's directly overseeing it. Now, does that mean that they have to mutually agree with the Castellan? No. If the High Marshal is saying that he's going to lead your crusade, there is no arguing with it, because he is, after all, mutually agreed upon to be the chapter master, the High Marshal. I keep calling him chapter master just because it's easier. But since he is mutually agreed upon to be the High Marshal, it's just, you just kind of roll over and just let him take control of your company, because who the fuck are you to disagree with someone that you elected? Now, that being said, that was a lot of information thrown at you. So let's go on to something else. What do Black Templars believe in? This is something that I think a lot of people know already, but let's just go over it just to be sure that we're on the same page. Because after all, I'm going to tell you guys everything that there is to know about them, and we're going to go from there for next videos. So, what do they believe in? They are fanatics to the extreme. We are talking about pure extreme. So you thought the Spanish Inquisition was a joke? Ha! Yeah, so did these guys. They think that being completely devout to your religion is the only way to go. So, that being said, and the imperial religion is somewhat, discriminatory, these guys do not possess any psychers. That means no librarians. They abhor witches, heretics, mutants, xenos, and demons. So that means is that if you are not just a regular human, you're on their shit list. They will kill you. They will make a very strong, dedicated purpose of making your life non-existent. So that means if you're a mutant, mind you, every human usually has a slight mutation, but to them, this is blasphemy. This is heresy. You need to be annihilated. That means no ratlings, no ogrins, no any mutants in their army makeup. And if they're fighting alongside Imperial Guard Regiment and they see a subhuman, they may actually take it upon themselves to just kill them in the middle of the battle. Or just kill them after they win the battle. Because again, they want to keep humanity as pure as possible, as stated in the Lectitio Divinitatis, and as the Emperor has willed it. Now, here's where it gets interesting. They refuse to fight along certain Space Marine chapters if they think that they fit one of these categories. Now, you may think, well, that's a little interesting. So, what chapters would fit the categories of heretics, mutants, xenos, demon, witches, psychers? Well, there's a lot of them. Like the Blood Ravens have an exceptionally high number of librarians. This would already garner a lot of mistrust between the Black Templars, and they would be very reluctant to ever even give their aid to the Blood Ravens. But there are some Space Marine chapters that are so genetically mutated that the Black Templars look at them and go, I gotta really not fucking kill this guy right now, but I really want to. Of course, like what Space Marine chapter am I talking about? I'm talking more specifically about the Black Dragons. Because the Black Dragons have those giant protrusions on their fucking arms that just look like a mutation. So, as stated, this chapter's very fucking zealous. Very zealous to the fucking extreme, to the point that they refuse to even help certain Space Marines. That's a little interesting. Now, them being a non-codex compliant and also being fanatics to the extreme on faith, what else sets them apart from the Space Marines and their beliefs? Well, unlike majority of the Space Marines, the Black Templars actually view the Emperor as a god. That's fucking strange. Now, I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say. What? But doesn't most of the Imperium view the Emperor Man as a god? Yes, they do. But Space Marines, majority of Space Marines actually view the Emperor as a man. They do not view him as a god. Few Space Marine chapters actually even acknowledge him as a god. Most of the time they just admit that he is a man, because that's what the Emperor wanted to be viewed as back in the Horus Heresy. Well, this chapter actually believes he is a god, a real literal god. And because of that, to them, fighting these wars and crusades is a more serious matter. It's a more personal matter. They take it more serious and more personal than other Space Marine chapters. Like a few other chapters like Doom Eagles and shit, they know that war is war. They're doing this just to survive. This chapter, when they go to war with you, they take it very personally. They go, I cannot allow you to ever live another second in this galaxy because my God is counting on me. So this means that they generate a lot of zeal, and they can justify just about any action that they perform, like destroying a whole fucking hive city. Because if the hive city has a shit ton of mutants or psychers, they're okay with it. If they per se kill a librarian who's using some weird foul magic that they're not familiar with, yeah, it may cause diplomatic repercussions with that Space Marine chapter, but they still view it as okay because, again, they have their faith to back up their beliefs and their actions. Now, this being said, their religious views on the Emperor and on their actions makes them actually get a lot of support from both the Inquisition and the Ecclesiarchy. Now, that being said, that is why I said that the Inquisition overlook a lot of the mistrust that they have with the Black Templars, because since they are so pure and holy at heart and so faithful to the Emperor, the Inquisition can't really do anything about it. Like, yeah, they may not trust the Inquisition, and the Inquisition may not trust the Black Templar, but the Black Templar fight a lot of demons. They kill a lot of heretics. They do things that the Inquisition is too busy to deal with. So the Inquisition really views them as a tool, just like the Grey Knights. So an Inquisitor may deploy Grey Knights on a battle to help him fight a demon or heretics or whatever. Well, he can also count on another Space Marine chapter, which would be the Black Templars, and he knows if he tells them, hey, there's a lot of heretics on this world, he knows that that chapter is going to drop everything they're doing, and they're going to do a personal crusade on that planet that the Inquisitor feels probably has heretics. Now, their zealous nature also plays a role in how they fight. Now, you may think, well, how do they fight? Well, the specialty of this chapter, since they're sons of Rogel Dorn, you would think the way they fight is fortifications, siegecraft. You're wrong. I am telling you, you are wrong. They do not do siege warfare. They do close combat. They do orbital assaults. They go hard as a motherfucker on your ass. They make damn sure that if you die within 2 inches away from them, because they want to spill your guts out. Again, very zealous group. They are very fanatical to the extreme. Now, you may think, well, why did they develop this specialty? Well, one, because of their religion, but two, it's actually because of their history. Their chapter originator, which would be Sigismund, was the best duelist out of all the Space Marines that have ever existed back during the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy. Well, Rogel Dorn didn't like him that much personally and actually kind of disowned him as a son. But seeing that he is a very powerful man and very dedicated to the Emperor, he still gave him his own chapter. Well, Sigismund, being who he was, decided to devote himself to pure zealous beliefs and the idea that you should always fight close quarters to the mutant, the heretic, and the xeno, and the demons, and all this shit. Because it's the purest way you can ever purge these motherfuckers from fucking existence. So ever since then, 10,000 years later, these guys have perfected that. They perfected drop pods assaults. They perfected raining hellfire on your fucking city from the orbit and then crashing down in close quarter combat just to slay your ass with their chainswords. And majority of the time, when you see these Black Templars, they may actually do suicidal assaults. Now, if you know me, and from my other videos, you know I'm usually skeptical of suicidal motherfuckers. But these guys take it to an extreme. So, as I said, Black Templars are very companionship, very camaraderie, mutual agreement is kind of like their whole shtick. Well, if one of their members in their squad dies in the middle of battle, they do not care about the tactical disadvantage they are in. They do not care about the real cost of their decision. They will lunge out of formation with their sword out, and they will kill whoever the fuck just killed their companion. This can cost them a few battles, but hey, it's very fucking effective. Because if you are just pure, full of hate and adrenaline and zeal, then no horde of enemy can hold you down. And no matter how powerful the foul magic are that the Xenos and the heretics are using on you, is not going to be enough to really stop you from stabbing them before they die. Now, you may think, all right, well, all this attrition, how do they recruit? Because after all, they need fucking recruits if they're going to fight like this. Jesus fucking Christ. Fighting in melee combat in a world where they could just get one-shotted? Holy shit. How do they recruit? Well, they're a fleet-based chapter. So that's kind of an issue. Since they're a fleet-based chapter, they have no homeworld to recruit from. So that means that they don't get steady recruits. But on the flip side, that means that their combat doctrines, their chapter beliefs, and so on stay pure. So they're not going to get somewhat shifted by where all their recruits come from. That also means that they can keep going on crusades without ever having to ferry back to a world just to replenish their numbers. So how do they pick up their recruits? Well, after crusading a certain planet, they establish a chapter keep. Now, a chapter keep is usually heavily fortified and typically is staffed with one apothecary and one chaplain. Always. Now, in order to be recruited, you have to be on one of these worlds that has a chapter keep, and you have to make a journey to the keep. Now, that sounds easier said than done. Usually they put these chapter keeps in the most dangerous, inhospitable place on the planet. One, to kind of really just keep the apothecary and the chaplain from boredom, but also, if you're a recruit and you're like 10 years old and you're able to survive this shit and reach their front door, you probably fucking deserve to be a Space Marine. So, once you get through there, you will be tested. Now, you will be tested in both faith and in skill. So now they're testing to see if you truly believe in the Emperor as a god, but they're also testing to see if you got the prowess necessary to be really any sort of worth to the chapter. Now, after you are tested and you are approved, you will be sent up into space to the nearest crusading fleet, and once you reach that crusading fleet, you will be assorted by the Battle Brothers, and the Battle Brothers will pick and choose which neophyte they're going to train. When a Battle Brother chooses you, though, this is where it gets weird, and again, they're not Codex compliant, so they don't use the same names for the same role. So once a Battle Brother chooses a neophyte, the neophyte is still a neophyte, but now he's in training and now he's in frontline combat, but his mentor, the one who's training him, is known as the Initiate. He is known as the Initiate because he is initiating you to the chapter beliefs, chapter doctrines, faith, and the combat techniques of the chapter. Now, let us say you're a neophyte and you fail the test on the chapter keep on your planet. Well, since you failed, you will be turned into a servitor, a Cenobite servitor, in which case the chaplain will have you assisting him in his daily prayers, aiding him in maintaining the keep, making sure everything runs nicely. And a nice little side note is that your lungs get pretty much replaced with these audio machines. And these audio boxes usually just play chapel hymns and stuff like that. So that way you can aid the chaplain in his prayers and his choir and stuff like that. Isn't that fucking nice? Yeah, that's fucking terrifying. So you better make sure that if you survive the journey to this keep, you better make damn sure you survive the test and you do really well. Now let's say you aren't approved by the Initiate, so you pass the chapter keep test, but the Initiate who's training you, he doesn't like you anymore, and he's like, you know what, I'm not going to teach you anymore, get the fuck out of here. Well, you're going to be reassigned to a different Battle Brother. Same thing happens if your Initiate dies. If your Initiate dies, another Battle Brother will just take up resuming teaching you. Now, while you're being taught, you're also being given your implants over time, and you're also going to, receive your power armor at the end of all your training, hopefully. If not, you're probably going to die in the front line within 10 years. So besides that, that's been the Black Templars video. I said it was going to be really long, and I meant it. Sure enough, 24 minutes. I said it was going to be 26, but 24, fuck it. I know you guys are a little nitpicky sometimes, but hey, we all can't be perfect. Besides that, I hope you guys enjoyed. Michael Burney, I know you've been requesting this a lot, and hopefully you have a good lunch break when you watch this video. Besides that, I'm going to be contemplating buying Catherine Classic and just playing that and uploading that as a YouTube series. because I love that game a lot. Besides that, see you guys next time. Comment down below what you think. Comment down below what your favorite part is of this video, because I just read a shit ton of fucking books and shit, so that way I could give you guys this information in a compact way where you guys could understand everything that I read, but also a little bit extra. You got a little bit of examples there that aren't really in the book, so you could easier understand what the fuck this chapter is. Besides that, see you guys next time, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Bye-bye!